Welcome, everybody, to Save Your Breast, a podcast where we explore stories and experiences that are reshaping the future of breast cancer treatment and breast reconstruction. I am Casey Polanco. I am the office manager and surgical consultant at Selise Plastic Surgery. I have been helping guide women through their breast reconstruction journey for over a decade now, the last 8 of those years with Dr. Nirav Selise, who is usually joining me, but today we have the privilege of hearing from one of Dr. Salia's patients. Selise joins us today. She is a past patient, a breast cancer survivor who underwent breast oncoplastic reconstruction with a lateral intercostal artery perforator flap, also known as a LICAP flap. So thank you for joining us today, Selise. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you.
Yeah.
We always talk about how, when patients come in, their journey with us is an emotional one.
Mm-hmm.
And we form like a really close bond. We get to know each other. We meet your family.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dr. Svalia discharges you and it's like a bad breakup.
Yeah.
So it's always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Let's just start at the beginning. If I remember correctly, you were diagnosed before the age of 40, which is the standard age that you start mammograms,
Correct.
Right? So I guess my question is how?
Yeah.
How did you find out that you had breast cancer?
Well, it was kind of crazy. I just was at work one day and I happened to be in a break room with a colleague that I felt comfortable with, right? So we were just talking like girlfriends and I had an itch and I scratched it on the side and I was like, I just felt something that shouldn't be there. And she was like, oh, like, is it a clogged duct? And I'm like, I'm not breastfeeding. And so she's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay. And I felt around and it felt kind of big. And, I work in dermatology. I know what things feel like. And I was like, this doesn't feel like something that feels like what I know. Right. And so I immediately was just like, okay, like, let me just see what I need to do. And I have a friend who's a gynecologist. I called her and I just said, can I have an order for a mammogram? Something is going on. So I try not to panic. I, was just like, okay, this could be so many other things, right? So why would it be breast cancer?
Yeah.
It really was not something I thought it was going to be. So thankfully 2 days later after that, I was able to get a mammogram, get an ultrasound. He knew on the imaging. He said, he was like, the doctor came in, he's like, you have breast cancer. So it wasn't a biopsy. It wasn't, I'm thankful because so many women have to go through all these steps and waiting and is it, isn't it, is, and he was just like, on the screen, this is what it is. So I was like, okay, that's not what I was expecting to hear today, and just panic, freak out. But like they say in moments of like, unexpected kind of trauma, things get very clear. And so you realize, okay, in that moment, like I knew what was important. And at first I was like, okay, can I still climb mountains? Yes. Am I going to die? No. Can I still go to work? Can I see my patients? Yes. So that I was like, okay, those 3 things, those questions, took me through, right? Because I was like, okay, when you're like, felt like a gun to my head, it was like, okay, this is what we focus on then. Go through this to get those things. So that was the kind of how it all happened. And I had a very, very kind radiologist who helped me kind of go through those next steps in finding what I needed to do.
Okay. So that was my next question, is how you found Dr. Heather McDonald, who is your surgical oncologist.
Yeah, through a lot of searching.
Okay.
So I went to 10 different doctors to find
10?
my team.
I didn't know
I went through 10 different doctors. Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting when you're under 40, right? You learn that a lot of doctors, when they treat cancer, they have a very like canned way of how they want to do things because they have, women who fit in a certain demographic that are just, if it works for them, right? And so I was insistent on being seen and heard as how I wanted to do it, as far as like, I'm not going to not work and I'm not going to stop being active and I want to still feel like me this whole time. So I was like, nope. And like you said, a bad breakup, right? Yeah. This felt like bad speed dating. It was just like, what? Like, hello, do you see me as this like young person? You're not seeing me, right? So went to multiple medical oncologists, multiple oncology surgeons, and radiologists, but honestly, the only plastic surgeon I saw was Dr. Savalia.
Really?
And once I met him, I was like, I don't need to look for a second opinion. This is good. This is a fit. So that was
Really?
pretty cool. Yeah, I just knew. I was like, the first thing he said was, "You're too young for this," and I was like, okay,
Oh,
he gets it. So that was cool.
and obviously that stuck with you
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
'Cause
totally.
he felt where you were,
Yeah,
'cause I can only imagine. I'm sure there's so many women who feel like they're just being put through the motions,
totally,
right? And
totally.
you just want to feel seen and heard and treated like a
Exactly.
person in front of
Yes,
you,
yes,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
I'm glad he did that for
yeah,
you.
yeah, he did.
When you did come in here, how did you feel? What were your initial thoughts about breast reconstruction?
Hmm.
Because I know a lot of patients, they don't even think about the breast reconstruction
Hmm.
part. They just think about removing the disease in their
Hmm.
breast.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what were your thoughts there?
I mean, it was about both, right? So
Hmm.
because of my active lifestyle, I didn't want to just, do a mastectomy and have, prosthesis. I wanted to see what are my options. How can I be the most like myself with the less downtime so that I can just feel like myself, right?
Hmm.
Because that's the thing. That was my biggest fear, I guess, was losing myself, losing my identity to this disease. So I wanted to work really hard to like maintain who I was. So, of course, I wanted to get the cancer out, but the type that I had, it had to be treated with chemo first.
Okay.
So that was different as opposed to surgery first, chemo after. So when it was explained to me, it was like, okay, we treat it with the chemo, and then we're gonna hopefully shrink it down, and we take it out where it was just to confirm it's killed. So I had kind of a different mindset where I was like, well, I mean, if we can't feel it anymore, if the chemo works, right? After one chemo, like you couldn't feel the lump anymore. So I was very
Wow.
hopeful. Just like, man, maybe it could be a smaller surgery. Like there's two frames of thought. Women sometimes are just like, take it off, take it out, right? And
Right.
I was opposite. I was like, I mean, how much do we really have to take? So that was, it was hard to kind of battle that where I was like, how do I rationalize that there was something I could feel? Now I can't feel it. They're telling me, I've done all this chemo. Why can't that be enough? So
Yep.
understanding, between Dr. McDonald and Dr. Savalia, them really being reassuring in that, okay, this is just how we have to do it, and we're going to take the best care of you possible. I had no hesitations because Dr. McDonald spoke so highly of Dr. Savalia that it wasn't a question of just like, oh, is he the right fit or how can I do this? I felt so comfortable that it was just like, okay, how are we going to do it well, right?
Right.
How does this get explained to me in a way that I can digest it?
Hmm.
And from her explanation, I understood kind of where she was just like, okay, they're gonna take this tissue, boom, you're gonna do that. And then he just kind of reaffirmed, yes, we can do that, and you're gonna have a great outcome. So that was, I didn't really feel like I had to make a huge choice in
Hmm.
that once I understood like you have to have surgery. There's not a choice, but we
Right.
can do it in a way that you're going to be happy and heal relatively quickly and like not have to deal with potential, long-term issues that could arise from a mastectomy.
Right. And I'm sure, I mean, I know when I was still naive to breast cancer,
Hmm.
um, in my mind, I always thought if I ever had diagnosis, I would just do bilateral mastectomy. Why
Hmm.
would I go through everything
Yeah,
else, right?
right.
And I think that's a lot of people's thoughts.
Hmm. Hmm.
So unlike you kind of maybe because you're in the medical field, there's other
Hmm.
options,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But when patients go to Dr. McDonald or other their surgical oncologists, they probably immediately think I'm going to have a mastectomy,
Hmm.
but it's the surgical oncologists who need to educate you and
Hmm.
tell you, your survival outcome is equivalent if you
Yeah.
do a lumpectomy versus a
Right.
mastectomy. That's not the case for everybody, of
Right.
course, but it's the case most of the time.
Hmm.
So did
Hmm.
Dr. McDonald have that
Yeah.
discussion with you?
Yeah, she did. And, I definitely like looked at all the research and was
Mhm.
like, prove it, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to see all the data. And at the end of the day, yes, when you have a mastectomy versus a lumpectomy with the radiation, those survival outcomes are very similar. So I was like, why would I put my body through that, right? Just
Yeah.
taking a body part off if you don't need to. So
Right.
she did explain that to me. And there wasn't ever a conversation about a mastectomy with the degree that I had. So I
Oh,
felt
that's good.
comforted in that. I mean, the radiologist, he even, when he looked and he was just like, no, like like, this will just be a quick, they'll just cut it out and you'll be on your way,
Oh,
So
wow.
mentally I thought, okay, this is going to be maybe a 3-month thing. And then they're like, oh no, you need chemo. Okay, maybe it's a 9-month thing. Oh, it actually has this special little protein. So but it was like, I could take those little bits of added versus like having it all thrown
Yeah,
at me at once. So that
that's
was,
true.
I guess, made it easier. But I think hearing the medical, like, nobody said like, oh, you're going to have to choose between a mastectomy and a lumpectomy. Like,
Yeah.
even the surgeons I didn't go with, they were like, it's going to be a lumpectomy.
Okay.
So that was helpful in not feeling like, oh, am I not doing enough?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's, at the end of the day, when you go through this, you want to know you've checked off every single box so that if anything were to ever happen, there's no regret of like, oh, I didn't choose to do that at the time I had the choice. So
Absolutely.
that was, I felt confident in that decision.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and some people, it's just they know themselves personally, and they
Mhm.
know that having the bilateral mastectomy,
Yeah.
regardless of
Yes.
the outcome, is just the right move for them.
Yes.
And so be it. It's
Right.
not a wrong
Right.
option, but
Totally.
it's good to know that you had the reassurance the entire time
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
this is the right move for you,
Yeah.
and you're not making a mistake.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
so you made an educated decision.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes.
You got all your facts.
Yes.
And Dr. McDonald, she's wonderful. She would
Yeah.
never, I tell her patients all the time, she would never steer you in the wrong
Yeah,
direction.
definitely not.
She's so great.
Yeah.
So we love her here.
Yeah.
And for your case, you had oncoplastic reconstruction. So Dr. Savalia rearranged some breast tissue to help fill the deficit from the
Mhm.
lumpectomy. But he also was able to use some extra tissue from the lateral side of your chest, or the side boob, as patients like to call it, to kind of swing that in. It's called a LICAP flap,
Mhm.
and fill your breast even more. So a lot of the times, Dr. Savalia will suggest this option for patients who are like, I want no change to my breast. I
Mhm.
want them to be the same size,
Mhm.
and he's like, all right, where do I get tissue to fill your breast to make it the same
Yeah.
size? So that's usually an option. Is that kind of what he did for you? Is
Mhm.
that the discussion you had with
Yeah.
him?
Yeah, exactly. So it was basically, there was each time I got more information, we learned there was not just one area of cancer, there were 3. And so it spanned a big area. So when I had the conversation with him, he's like, okay, we can definitely reshape and reform, but in order to maintain any volume, right, we have to take tissue from somewhere else. And so that was going to be I guess, I don't know if the term least invasive, but instead of taking it from somewhere else on my body,
Right.
that was going to just be the easiest shift over. And it made sense to me that, let's move it over, have it be a new breast basically on that part of it. And you're just replacing one thing with another. So it made medical sense to me, it made surgical sense. And as far as like the downtime, I appreciated that because I understand when you take fat or tissue from other body parts, it's just a whole other type of downtime and just recovery. So
Right.
I was super excited that that was going to be able to be how the surgery was done.
Good.
Yeah.
And what was the recovery like?
Oh my gosh, it was a breeze. Honestly, like I had the worst pain I had was from the intubation. I
Really?
had no pain at all, at all.
I love hearing
And I
that.
mean, he'll tell you, I was in here 1 week later, like, okay, when can I get back?
When can I
I am dying. I need to do I need to be active. Like I cannot sit in the house. So it was a pleading, and he's like, he knows mentally, logically, I know that I couldn't do something. It's a
Right.
very long scar, beautiful, skinny, white, perfect scar, but long, big,
Yeah.
right? We don't want movement. So our compromise was, instead of being off work for a month, I could go back after 2 weeks, still couldn't exercise for a month, but at least I could go back to the second thing that I love, and no procedures, had to keep my arms down. But that was what saved me, because the recovery was so easy. I didn't feel like I couldn't do things. I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any discomfort. Like it was just, I've never had any kind of surgery, and I couldn't imagine something going smoother. No pain meds, no icing, no anything. Like it was just,
Wow.
I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, like I'm ready to get back to my life.
Like
and
it was all a dream.
oh my gosh, I was so thankful. Like it was so easy.
Good.
Yeah. And the preparation, like how you guys have everything, written out, and just, taking these pills and that pills, supplements. I loved that. I feel like it just helped with the healing, and it just made it like, that was literally the easiest part of everything I went through. So I was very thankful for that.
Good. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
So in my pre-ops with you and with my other patients, I always try to not convince, but I tell patients your recovery will be surprisingly easy. Most
Mhm.
patients don't experience what you experienced or what you're telling us today.
Yeah.
So that's really good to hear that your recovery was easier than you expected. You wanted to get back to life,
Mhm.
and Dr. Svelia allowed you to get back to your cognitive
Yes.
abilities.
Yes, yes.
What was it like prepping for surgery? Did you feel well prepared? What was that
Hmm.
like?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, everyone just said, just continue to maintain your fitness as much as you can.
Mhm.
Obviously, I think I had surgery, it was about 8 weeks after my last chemo.
Okay.
So throughout that whole journey, I was very committed to just continuing to exercise and hike and work and everything. Right. So
Mhm.
physically, I felt like my body was prepared. I was told that, as long as you are healthy as much as possible going in, then that's going to allow you to heal quicker. So I just use that as my motivation to continue to stay active and healthy through everything. I think I was taking arnica and bromelain. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I feel like that was helpful in just like decreasing the inflammation. And then as far as after, it was just the Tylenol and Advil, and it was easy.
Good.
Yeah.
And day of surgery, how did you
Hmm.
feel? Were you
Um,
anxious? Did you have a whole team of support with
Yeah,
you?
I had so I had my one of my best friends and my cousin from out of town came in, and I think at that point I just felt ready. I
Mhm.
felt like, okay, this is something that, we've just it's kind of the last thing I have to do, right? As
Right.
far as physically continued treatments after that, but it was like, okay, we did, what was really hard was the chemo, and
Mhm.
now this is just kind of a confirmation to show it worked and we got to take care of it. So I mean, the day of, I was good to go. The week before, not so much. As we continued to find the wider disease state, Dr. McDonald was a little less certain of how much she could leave, right? And so that was like the hardest part was, oh my gosh, like what am I actually going to be left with? Is it worth it?
Right.
Do I get a mastectomy, right? So it did change a little bit as we found more coverage of that area. So that was where, not only my family support and friends, but Dr. Savalia and Dr. McDonald, we were, just bouncing things off of each other of, okay, if this happens, then what? If this happens, so we had our main plan. Thank
Mhm.
God that's how it went. But we
Mhm.
had a backup plan, and we had a backup plan to that backup plan, and that was like where I feel like their like humanness kicked in,
Yeah.
because anybody else would just be like, this is what you're doing, like, sorry, you have
Yeah.
cancer, right? And so that was the part that support was huge,
Yeah.
because you're trusting someone, you're going under the knife, and it's like, okay, I might wake up with something I didn't expect,
Right.
right? And that is so scary. So I
Totally.
feel like the day of surgery, I felt very confident because they allowed me to have that space and those conversations beforehand to know that, whatever happens, we have a plan for it. And
Mhm.
so that was very nice.
Oh, that's wonderful to
Yeah.
hear. That really is because they really do care.
Hmm.
I've
They
told
do.
patients always ask, well, what if they go in and they find X, Y, and Z and
Hmm.
they have to change the plan? And I'm
Hmm.
like, I promise they have meetings
Yes.
every Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
They discuss every case
Right.
together. It's all the breast surgeons. It's not
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
your breast surgeon and your
Yeah.
plastic surgeon, it's all of the
Right.
breast surgeons. And they all are in agreement before they put
Hmm.
you under the knife.
Right.
And to your point also about leading up to surgery, the day of surgery seems to be like the easiest, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Everybody tells me the waiting game is the
Yes.
hardest.
Yes.
Chemo is like a long
Hmm.
waiting stretch, right?
Yes.
Is this
Yes.
even worth it?
Right.
And then you get to the end, you're like, okay, it was worth it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you have to wait for surgery
Yes.
because you
Yes.
can't have surgery right
Right.
away. Then you have
Right.
to wait another
Yeah.
6 weeks for
Yeah.
surgery.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of waiting before
Yeah.
the surgery, and that's like the final step.
Yes.
So once that day comes, it's
Hmm.
it's a huge relief.
Yes.
It's
It was.
usually like an excitement day,
Hmm.
like we're
Hmm.
here,
Right.
we
Right.
can stop going through all these hoops now.
Right. Exactly.
So, and then, like you said, after surgery was a breeze.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
glad to hear that that
Yeah.
was easy for you.
Yeah. It was.
How do you feel life has been since this journey? How
It's
do
been
you,
great.
yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so lucky. Like, like I said, my main goal was to maintain. And so
Hmm.
I kept hearing, from friends, family, whoever, because people don't know what to say, right? Like, I don't have a family history of cancer. No one in my family has ever gone through anything like this. I have a very big family too. There's like 50 of us. So
Wow.
that was kind of a shock to everybody of like, wait, that girl who does all these things, she drinks kombucha every day, she got breast cancer. Like, how, what's happening here? So, just, I didn't want to be seen as sick or unhealthy, right? And
Yeah.
so I took that word out of my vocabulary, and I didn't accept anybody trying to use it on me, because I was like, I'm not sick. I'm fine. I have something in my body. It doesn't belong here. We're going to treat it. We're going to move on. So everyone's like, oh no, but it's going to change you. It's this and that. And now moving forward, I realize change doesn't have to be bad.
Right.
And it can change you, but it can make you stronger. It can make you see life differently. It can make you appreciate things more. So it did change me, but I'm happy with the changes. Whereas when I first was hearing that, I was just like, no, I don't want to change. I like how things are, but it's like, it can make you better.
Yeah.
So I'm just so grateful for that. And having gone through all of it, because not only does it make me appreciate my own life more, but as a medical provider, it makes me that much more in tune with what people have to go through. I like to keep track of everything, right? I think it was 275 medical appointments, office visits.
Wow.
Not all medical, but all related to treating the cancer, right? In 17 months. That's crazy. It becomes a second full-time job, right? And so when I see my own patients, then I can just know, okay, if this is going on, maybe it's related to something else. And it's just, we're here to help. And it makes me just care that much more, because it's something that, we all are going through, whatever we're going through. And so I just have that much more patience and kind of understanding of what it's like now to be a patient. Whereas before, you're just like, oh, I get a physical once a year. I didn't know. I had no medical issues. So it's just, it allows you to see things through a different lens, but maybe with more clarity.
Right. And I'm sure it helps also knowing that you've been in the shoes, right? I mean, you're in dermatology, so it's a little bit different, but kind of the same, right? There's still diagnoses in that field, but I'm sure your patients they feel your empathy, right?
I hope so.
I mean, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I feel like patients feel that from me, and I've never been in their shoes, right? I just know from experiences that patients have shared with me everything that I know, right?
Yes.
And I use that, and I just try to guide patients that way.
Right.
And this is what Selise told me once, this is what Selise told me, and we can expect this. So it's nice to know, I'm sure, as your patients, that you have that empathy change a little bit, because I'm sure it's made you a better provider in the end too.
I hope so. I mean, that's all we can do is just, take what life gives us and make it into something that we can share with people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. Do you feel that your breast reconstruction is a daily reminder?
No.
The scar? No?
I mean, it's an interesting question, right? Because it is, but it's not something I dwell on, I guess. So I love it, because I look at scars every day on, people, and it's perfect. And it's a reminder of what I went through. So as far as do I look at it and say, oh my gosh, I had breast cancer, that was so hard? No, I look at it and say, hey, look what I got through.
Yep.
So that's, in that sense, yes, but not in any negative way.
I love hearing that. I really do, because I think that's a fear for patients, right? They don't want to look in the mirror every single day and be reminded of this tough journey. And you can look at it two ways.
Yes.
You can look at it and remember every single day that you sat and got chemo. You can remember every single day of your recovery, or you can look at it and be like, look where I am now. I'm a badass.
Exactly.
So, okay, I love that.
Yeah.
So you said you had 275 appointments related to your breast cancer diagnosis, and you have a very large family where nobody went through this journey.
Right.
How did you deal with that emotionally? Who did you reach out to? How did you find your support?
Yeah.
What was that journey like?
Well, luckily, the day that I got diagnosed, one of my cousins, Tara, was with me. So that was helpful, because I wasn't concerned enough to actually think it was cancer, but enough to know maybe I should have somebody, just worst case scenario, right? So she was there with me, and I had to go back to work after
Oh
it was
no.
on my lunch break. So she was, sweet enough to be like, hey, I don't think you should do this, but I had to. My boss was out of town. No one could see the patients. So she was like, come over after, right? So my aunt is who I went to, my Aunt Nettie. And that was just kind of where I went to be like, hey, you have the answer to a lot of things, so I'm going to trust that you can help me with this. And she's kind of like the matriarch of the family, the quarterback, right? She just always like knows how to help, right?
Oh.
So she's just very kind and caring and warm. And so she was just like, hey, we're going to make a plan. We're going to get through this. And that's what we're going to do. So, and you have our huge family and everyone's going to be supportive. And, let me just help you and communicate with them for you while you go do all the other things. Also my dad, like just incredible. That was through the hardest days. That was like,
Oh.
it was, I mean, he pulled out like support and strength that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
So, I think that it was obviously hard, but it didn't get extra super hard until with the chemotherapy, they put me into menopause. And so a whole other space of empathy I have for my patients and women going through that, right, is that you don't know how strong your hormones are until you don't have them. And you're put into this shift very quickly that just makes everything a little bit different when you don't feel like you have the emotional capacity to deal with things the way you would have objectively if your hormones were normal. So that was like the biggest thing of dealing with those shifts and swings, to the point where I was like, I'm not gonna be in menopause anymore. Like, just pull me out. I need to feel like myself to get through this. So in those moments where it was very hard, like my dad was just my rock, and just, every single day, multiple conversations of just guidance and, being able to show support. And then, the two of them together, they're two of six, right? So I have four other aunts and uncles. They all came together and they would show up, and my family would call, text, send gifts. Like, it was so sweet. They put together a giant basket full of things that I could open every day through my first, month of chemo. And it was just like overwhelming. I mean, I never have felt love and support like that before, where it was just like, there's no matter what, like, no matter what happens to you through this, we're here for you. And, just sweet messages from cousins every day, and funny pictures, and just things to remind me like, okay, this is why I'm doing this, right? Because there are moments where you're just like, I don't want to, like, let's just see what happens. Do I have to do all this, right? But at the end of the day, then you have all these eyes on you and these people caring about you, and it's like, make the decision not only for yourself but also for the people who care about you, so you can be here for as long as possible with them. And so that, at the end of the day, especially knowing that there was this HER2, positivity, it's like, okay, you can't mess around with that. Like, you have to just kill it full blast, right? So that was kind of through those hard days, with the support of my family and friends and my boss. Oh my gosh, like, my boss, my aunt, my uncle, like, those were like my top three cheerleaders of just like, on those worst days, it's like, like, thank you. Like, it was just, their support was, amazing. I mean, obviously, I needed to go to work, but they needed me there too. So to have that support and say, hey, whatever you need to get through these days, we're here for you, right? So that was amazing. And just friends, reaching out, people that I hadn't heard from, they were just, people told people. I wasn't public about it at all. I didn't even tell my coworkers until when was it? Until I was 3 months away from my last immunotherapy. So they had, dealt with me through over a year of treatment, not knowing what I was going through. I'm sure people talked, but I was just like, I don't want anyone to see me differently. So only my boss knew, and everybody else was just like, besides the coworker that I was in the room with, we kept it private, because I was just like, I don't, again, want to be seen as sick. I want to be seen as capable. And so that part, his support in that was immeasurable.
That's amazing to hear. There's so many patients who because I always ask, do you have support? You know,
Mm-hmm.
do you have support at home? And I have a lot of patients who, and everybody to each their own, but I do have a handful of patients who they want every single fact before they go to their family, and some of them don't even tell their husbands right away.
Wow.
And in my mind, I'm like, my husband, I call him for
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
Like, I call my dad for everything. I call my husband for everything. They always know what's going
Yeah.
on. So I can't imagine that. But it is needed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need that support because there are really hard days where
Yes.
you need somebody to remind you, like, hey, you are strong enough to do
Mm-hmm.
this. You
Mm-hmm.
can get through this. Like,
Yes.
you have a team
Yeah.
who is a surgical team who is guiding you
Right.
properly, and you have your family
Yeah.
who's here to support you through that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing to hear that your entire family was there for
Mm-hmm.
you, because it
Yeah.
is really important to have that.
Definitely.
It is so
Yeah.
good. So going back to your results and your reconstruction, you mentioned that maintaining yourself was very important, right? You
Mm-hmm.
leave an active lifestyle. So talk to us a little bit about now and making that decision. Was it the right one for you? Because a lot of women, they don't care. They don't care what they look like afterwards. Like I said
Mm-hmm.
earlier,
Sure.
they just want to remove the disease and know that they don't have disease. And a lot of the time it's Dr. Savalia's job to be that advocate for them.
Yeah.
So what was that decision making for you?
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like you made the right decision? How has it impacted your life in all aspects?
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, for me, it was kind of maintaining that wholeness, but also, the active lifestyle that I lead. And it's not how I've been my whole life, right? I played sports growing up, but was not super athletic. This was kind of coming into my late 20s, early 30s that I really committed to a healthy lifestyle, to fitness, to, looking a certain way because I felt a certain way inside. So that kind of aesthetic for me was important to maintain because it was something I've worked very hard for, right? So we could call it vanity, but for me, it was a reflection of my health. And so having my body be a certain way and, to have breasts that reflected what I felt like was my femininity, that was something I didn't want to let go of. You could think, oh, well, athletic, right? You want to maybe just have it flat. That would be easier, right? But it's the whole thing where it's just like I've created this kind of lifestyle that I enjoy, but I want the outside to reflect the inside. And so that was why it was important for me to maintain what I was kind of used to. I had large breasts since I was 11, and to just say, oh, now you don't have that body part anymore, I couldn't fathom that. That would be like cutting my hand off. So it was, for me, not the option. As far as the outcome, like, I couldn't be happier. I'm so just pleased with how they look, how they feel. There was no changes to any kind of sensation. They're better than ever. So I'm thrilled.
The feminine side of us, there's many things that make us feel feminine.
Mm-hmm.
I think our hair and our breasts are like top of everybody's list,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You go through chemo, you compromise your hair,
Right.
most women, right? Unless you do cold cap, which is a whole nother story.
Right. And I did. That's why I was able to maintain most of it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think I remember that about you. So, and then our breasts are right the next part. So, women who don't do the cold cap, who lose their hair, a lot of those women are like, yeah, I do want to keep my breasts. Like that's what's making me feel whole right now. Right. My nails are gone. My skin has changed. My hair is gone.
Yeah.
My eyelashes are gone.
Yes.
I need my breasts.
Right.
So sometimes that is a driving factor for women to choose breast conservation.
Yeah, it's just, it's the shape of our bodies, it is, even if you don't need them to live, you feel alive when your body's whole.
Yes.
And so I don't feel like when people would ask, like, oh, why not, right? Just do that. It's like, well, how would you feel if we took off a body part that you've had your whole life? Even if you didn't need it, we all want all of our body parts.
Right.
So it's like, and we want them to look how we're used to. And that's just, I deal with that every day, right? People are so torn of, well, I kind of want to do Botox or a laser or whatever, but I don't want to not look like me. And it's like, the whole goal is for you to look like you. I really try to encourage people to say, it's not about vanity. It's about, you've looked a certain way for a long, long time, and now you look different.
Right.
You want to look how you did before, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you, strange. It means that we get used to how we look and we feel good at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
And so we like to maintain that as long as possible.
Right.
And thankfully, with plastic surgery technology and everything else, we can do that for a lot longer than we used to be able to. And so
Yeah.
it's really a gift. And, I feel like there shouldn't be as much shame behind it as sometimes there is, because it is something that we should be able to want to feel like ourselves.
Right. We're not here for a long time, and we should be
Exactly.
happy in the body that we're given
Exactly.
and the way that we look,
Yeah.
right? We put so much effort into our clothes and our style and our
Mhm.
hair. It's like, why not take care of our body that's
Yes.
taking care of us?
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
So, looking back, what would you say was the biggest challenge of your journey?
I for sure maintaining my sense of self. That was something I didn't want to waver on. Like I
Mhm.
said, had worked hard to get to where I was, and I was just so nervous of having to give certain things up in order to compromise for this disease.
Mhm.
And so that was my biggest fear of just like, who am I going to be after this? Right. You just hear so many stories, and not having had anybody close to me that had gone through this, I just had really no idea what to expect. So the hardest part was, I guess, paving that path and having it be just kind of unknown. But it was the beauty in it too, because I got to make my own rules.
Yeah.
So nothing was off the table as far as what I got to do. And so I think uh, tailoring it to how I wanted it to be was hard, but it
Mhm.
was also like the most gratifying.
Mhm. If you could share one piece of advice or words of encouragement to anybody who's entering this journey, what would that be?
Advocate for yourself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a big one.
Yeah,
It really is.
we're taught, especially as women, to just, take what people say
Yeah.
and go with it, not question doctors, not question, motives for whatever reasons. And it's not about, trying to be argumentative or like debative, but it's kind of like make sure that you know every single thing that you need to know to make the best decisions for yourself,
Right.
and know that you are going to get through it. That's the hardest part, is seeing the other side and what that looks like. You will get through it.
Yeah.
But the self-advocacy, I think, is so important, because so many people just blindly, go to one doctor one time and they're like, okay, I guess this is my plan and
Yeah.
this is what I have to do. And it doesn't have to look the same for everybody. And there are ways in 2025 to get through cancer and still live your life. So that would be my biggest piece of advice, is you don't have to put your life on hold in order to get treated for this.
Yeah. I think a lot of patients see themselves as being difficult when they're asking questions, right? And
Yeah,
it's the right surgeon for you is not going to treat you that you're being
correct.
difficult. They're not going to, roll their eyes at you. They're going to see it as an opportunity to further educate you and your
Correct.
decision making, and that's really important.
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
like all the breast surgeons at Hogue, especially Dr. McDonald. I
Mhm.
feel like she does a really good job of educating her
Yes.
patients, and I know firsthand that Dr. Swaley does.
Mhm.
Almost
Mhm.
every patient, they all say that. He
Yes.
took so much time explaining
Yes.
to me all my options and
Yeah.
then helping me guide me down the path of what they ultimately chose. So
Yes.
so I'm glad that you said that, because it's very true. It's very true. As women, we need to learn to advocate for ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Selise, it was an honor to have you here
Thank
today, and so
you.
good to see you
Good to
again.
see
And
you.
I actually learned some things about your case that I didn't realize I didn't know.
Oh, good.
Please share this podcast with anybody who you think would benefit from it. Keep following along and listening in. We'll have future episodes with other patients also who can share their journey. Thank you for joining us today.